Hello and welcome to Short Topics Talk number 2, 5 Unexpected Ideas to Boost Your Science. I'm Mark Williamson for the Biostats Core at the University of North Dakota. So, the reason for this little talk here is, the rationale as it were, is that, well, research takes dedication. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of difficulties, slogging, what for? So it can become very grinding or stale, and so it's often discouraging. So I have some off the beaten path ideas to help boost your research, to re-engage you, revigorate you, and perhaps make things more efficient. So here are the 5 ideas I'll be covering today. First, we have article a day. Next, low-tech de-distraction. 3, public progress. 4, easy icons. And 5, inspiring backdrops. So let's go through each of the ideas in their own turn. So first of all, we have article a day. The idea of this is to read a scientific article every day. It can just be the work week, Monday through Friday. You don't have to do it every single day, but whatever days you work. So the first step would be find a lot of really interesting paper and then schedule a week out for a paper each week. I usually try to do it about a week in advance so I know what I'm reading for the week. And really, you want to make sure to go beyond the normal confines of your research. Don't just look at the stuff you think may be important for your specific research now. Find the ones that really strike your fancy. Find the ones that are interesting. And you could even rate them if possible and then read the most interesting ones first. And another helpful thing here in this is to highlight or take notes as you're doing this so you can keep all the good ideas, the interesting conclusions in some sort of documentation. The next idea here is low-tech de-distraction. So you'll have to deal with all sorts of distraction at work, so there's a lot of easy ways, simple ways to reduce some of those. First of all, you can certainly turn off any notifications that are unnecessary, especially things like email, of course your phone messages, etc. I don't know how many times I've been in a Zoom call and I've seen someone screen share, and at the bottom of their screen there's a constant inflow of little pop-up messages. I've turned all those off on my computer so that, especially with emails, I only check them when I need to, instead of being constantly distracted and bombarded by these new messages, most which are probably unimportant. You can, of course, if you have an office or some sort of space, you can physically block distractions, having a door sign saying, I'm writing right now, or I'm in a meeting. You could have a little sticky note, whatever, just some way to let incoming people know that maybe you can't be disturbed at this point. And maybe schedule that into the day of specific time that you don't do meetings, you don't have any sort of distractions. I guess on your computer, your browser, if you're doing computer work, like a lot of us in research will be, definitely reduce your open tabs so you're not being distracted by everything that's open. Just sort of try to focus in on a few relevant tabs to your work. And of course, throughout your workspace, you can certainly declutter it to try to keep the chaos at bay from distracting you on what you're trying to get done. Next idea is what I call public progress. So how to keep yourself accountable by publicly posting your progress in some sort of way. This could happen in a lot of different setups, and it'll depend on what you actually work on. So finding some sort of accountability scheme. So maybe you do a weekly post on LinkedIn of your research, and that keeps you accountable to keep moving forward on a project. Perhaps you would release a YouTube video explaining your work or doing training, or maybe even a podcast, something that you have a schedule that you do at a certain interval that you post publicly for some reason so that it keeps you on track. Of course, it doesn't need to be the public, it doesn't need to be the whole internet. You could set up something where you send a progress report to your supervisor every week, so it keeps you on task and so that you have public accountability in that way. All right, let's talk about another idea to boost your science, easy icons. So when you're putting together a PowerPoint slide, it's helpful to have easily available reference pictures to spice up your talk, to really help drive home a point. And so it's nice to have a picture that you don't have to maybe like search on the internet, make sure you're not dealing with attribution error, attributing it properly, maybe having big ugly links to like the reference. There are some great sources for easy icons, especially for scientific research. First of all, PowerPoint has special icons that you can insert. So if you have a PowerPoint license, there's a lot of great basic icons that are helpful to drive your point home. Another thing I just found out about, especially for biological research, is a place called PhyloPic. Now you do need to reference a lot of these, but they are free silhouettes of biological organisms. So that could really, I've seen this in published papers actually, so that could really boost your game. There's also BioRender, which has all sorts of biological images that you could use to build like cell diagrams, whatever. Now, the downside of this, it does cost money, but hey, if you have some budget for this, this could really boost your scientific image creation. And then finally, here's more of an experimental side. Of course, AI is all in the news. There is AI generation that is coming online that could be used for certain things. For example, DALL-E 2, you can create all sorts of images, drawings using AI. And so that's a possibility to maybe create an easy icon that's not otherwise findable. Lastly, let's talk about inspiring backdrops. So this works really hand in hand with the article in day, meshes really well with that. Whereas when you're reading an important figure or interesting paper, you actually take figures out of that, and save them as an image. Then you have these images of these really important sort of summaries of research or whatnot, graphical abstract, overviews, infographics, whatever. And then you can put them in a folder and then go to your computer background and set your background image to a slideshow of the images folder. So throughout your day, every 10 minutes, every half an hour, the image changes. And so you have a constant reminder of the most interesting and inspiring research you know of. So with that, let's take a look at some examples. So for Article a Day, a great resource for interesting, relevant articles is Science Daily. I really love this site. It summarizes very interesting papers and then provides links to the papers you could read in full. So this is a great resource for finding articles. For example, here you can do it by date. So these are the new papers close to the time of writing. There's a whole list. You can click on them, have an interesting summary, and then go to the rest of the paper. In fact, if you want to hear someone wax eloquent about some of these papers here, you can check out my podcast, Science Research Weekly, where one of the topic areas is I go over the interesting research articles of the week. So if you want a curated list of maybe what I think are the most important ones of the week from Science Daily, check that one out. Other examples, low-tech de-distraction. So this is a pet peeve of mine. So if you work with Outlook, there's a little icon in your browser tab. And whenever you get a new message, and I've been able to find a way to actually shut this off, but when you get a new message, it gets a little red dot here. And that's really distracted me because then I can't not want to look at the new message I got. And so I found a low-tech de-distraction method. So what I do is, you see here's an example of that. You see the little red dot. Now I keep my Outlook as my leftmost tab on my browser. And then what I did is I just took a little sticky note, colored it black, and put it physically. So this is a picture of my computer. Physically put this on here, and so I can't see what this looks like as long as I have my browser on the leftmost here. And that's a low-tech example of how to keep Outlook from distracting me with their new message red light. Moving on to public process, there's a lot of ways you can do this. Here's some examples of what I do. I have a weekly podcast, so every week I put together this and post it. So this really keeps me going on keeping abreast of the most recent interesting articles, more recent tools, like statistical tools, other types of tools, and then funding opportunities. So this helps me, and hopefully it helps my readership or my listenership. I don't know if that's what you call podcast people, your audience to podcast listenership, whatever. That's not important. Another thing I do here is I have training videos for statistics. This is an example of one of the playlists that I finished on bite-sized statistics. I had a schedule to put out one of these a month, and I mostly kept to that. Easy icons. I'll go through those 4 examples I showed of it. First of all, to find the icons in PowerPoint, just go to this icons tab here in the insert icons, and then it'll pull up all sorts of stock images, and you can search for the specific ones and pull them out. You can recolor them. This is a great, easy resource. This is that file pick I talked about. Again, there's all sorts of silhouettes of animals, plants, and other life forms that you can take a look at. With BioRender, again, there's thousands of icons across fields of life science. Now, again, there's cost, but there's a little bit of free option. Probably the next step would be the individual. I think it's $35 a month, which is a little steep, but if you use a lot of images for scientific papers, this could be cost effective and easy in the long run. And finally, this is that experimental image creation through AI, DALL-E 2. Here's some examples of icons I tried to put together. So it had a fairly decent leaf icon or a robot icon, though it's not always perfect, especially if there are things that might involve words. It gets it really weird. Like I tried to do this microscope icon and then had a lot of these like weird little things down here, so I'd almost have to crop this to even use this as a microscope. So grain of salt with some of this experimental stuff. Finally, let's look at experimental backdrops. Here's an example. I have a paper up in EndNote. I think, hey, this image is really useful. I can use whatever sort of tool you want to capture. I'm using a snipping tool. So I snip this image using the tool. Have this image here. I can save it as an image, put it in a folder. So this is a folder with other images from other papers. I usually just put the last name et al. And then the year and then what figure it is, just so if I want to go back to that paper, I have a reference. And then I can set it in my backdrop. Here's an example, a screenshot of my backdrop. You can see this is one of the images there. All right, with that, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully this short topic talk was interesting. This is some of my information here if you want to contact me. And again, I am supported through the DaCCoTA project. So if you find this useful and you want to reference it, this is how you can cite the DaCCoTA. Thanks and have a great day.